Broads Media.
Nothing funnier to me than watching all these local Lakers fans show up to get their asses kicked. The Sixers just handled business. No LeBron James, I understand, but still waxed them, and it was enjoyable to watch this team play the way that they did tonight. If you are new to the channel, smash that subscribe button. Hit that thumbs up button as well. I greatly appreciate it. Really helps out the channel. I love you all so much. Real quickly, if you're looking to buy tickets for any Sixers game coming up or any event out there, SeatGeek promo code BROADS gets you $20 off of your purchase. It's a no-brainer. Forget about those fees. I'm basically paying that for you. Promo code BROADS. Get yourself to a game today. And lastly, TikTok, Broads Media. Hit the follow button there. We're incorporating some fun stuff. With that being said, enjoy the show. What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Broads. The 76ers with another fantastic win. A great team effort. So many dogs stepped up tonight. Joel Embiid, even though it wasn't the sexiest in the world efficient-wise, we've seen him dominate more. He was still insanely good. Don't let anybody fool you. Don't let any local Lakers fans that also love Duke basketball and love the Yankees and love Michigan football, whatever the list is, whatever other teams they like. What am I missing? The Dallas Cowboys. Don't let them fool you into thinking that Anthony Davis stole his lunch money just because AD was in his bag tonight. Joel Embiid, he was directing traffic around the perimeter. He was hitting his teammates whenever he got doubled or at times even tripled. I saw him on the block at the basketball. He was starting to get doubled, kicked it out to Furkan. Furkan reset, put it back into the post, which I'm shocked we could even do that, because at times that is a part of this basketball squad that makes my damn eyes bleed, which is getting Joel the ball when he has his back to the basket and establishing himself on the block. But anyway, I digress. He ends up going back to Embiid. Embiid's put pressure on the defense. He gets into the paint area. Here's two Lakers defenders swarming down low. So now there's three guys on him. He tries to put it up, misses, gets his own rebound, gets fouled, goes to the charity stripe. Now, there was a problem with him actually knocking down his free throws tonight. I don't know if there's a correlation with just fatigue. There's been some dialogue about, is it time for him to get a night's rest and sit down? But the professionalism and the determination of what Joel Embiid has become, I don't think he will allow it. He never wants to take that breather. He never wants a night off. And you could hear him on the post-game show when he was talking to the TNT crew. Every way that he directs his message towards younger guys on the team, even if it's holding himself accountable and not thinking that he had himself a strong night, even though that's crazy, that's asinine. He absolutely did. And even when he does have a even better game, a 50-point performance in 27 minutes, he's the dude that looks in the mirror and goes, yeah, but I had 5 turnovers. Yeah, but I had 4 turnovers. Yeah, but I missed one shot in the second quarter when we were up 17. I could have made it 19. And there was a lot of clock left on the shot clock. I didn't like that possession. I got to be sharper in that moment. Of course, I'm just throwing crap at the wall here. Theirs aren't real legitimate things, but that's the way that his brain works, and that's the way that he holds himself to such a high standard. It's absurd. Joel Embiid was all over the map today where he was helping this team score. Now, was there a correlation? You saw him bend down and grab his wrist, his hand area. He continued to play for so much longer after that happened. I just wonder, is there something to be said about seeing that moment and all of those free throws, because we are just not accustomed to seeing him miss that many. There's a lot in play here. I think it's more probably just fatigue. And if you remember our last post-game podcast when it came to the Sixers, somebody asked me on the Anytime Hotline, is it possible that when you play this much at this high of a level, at some point you're just going to hit a wall and it's not sustainable to carry a bunch of role players the way that Joel Embiid has? And I think that's fair. And maybe we're seeing that play over 20, 30, 35 games. It seems like every single damn night. I should use every game total, but keep in mind, he did miss some portions of the beginning stages of the season with COVID. So I'm probably right with my assessment with that 30-game marker. So is it fair to say, it's been so long, maybe that's happening? Maybe. But that doesn't, let's get back on track here. he was still sensational, and he still dictated the pace of play with the 76ers, forcing the Lakers to double, and he made the right basketball plays, whether it's, like I said, directing traffic or Matisse Thybulle's cutting, and there's not a lot of space to make a bounce pass, but he does. He threads the needle like he's a quarterback in the NFL, like he's Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes, just like we witnessed on Sunday night with that absurd football game. That's what it seemed like Joel Embiid was doing. Awesome performance by him. I don't want to downplay the times where he did play bully ball and he got himself so far underneath the basket that as soon as he got the ball, it was up and easy. One fluid motion, bada bing, bada boom. Either a monster jam or he kissed it off the glass for a nice easy two. Don't let Lakers fans and Anthony Davis fool you into thinking that Embiid wasn't awesome today, because 1,000% he was, and it was an awesome watch. I almost found it, and don't get me wrong, I'd rather see 50 points in 27 minutes, but I almost found it fascinating to study Joel on a night like this where he becomes a little bit more human, didn't cash in any threes. He finished 9 of 20 from the field. It felt way worse than that, to be fair, but that's what he finished with. In 8 of 13 from the free throw line. That's a little bizarre. 26, 9, and 7. And we were talking about this on Coffee with Bro. Someone asked me what I thought the stat line was going to be. Originally, I threw something outrageous out there, 40 points. But then I realized the way that they're going to play him, anyone but Joel Embiid. Kick it out to Thybulle. Kick it out to Maxey. Kick it out to Tobias. Have them beat you. Well, today, all your other guys stepped up. I changed my opinion, though. My point is I realized that there's probably going to be a high assist total, and I thought that was such a great area to watch him grow tonight. He was finding guys on the opposite side of the corner. He was telling guys during a half-court possession where to go. Awesome, awesome, awesome. The passing really stood out to me, and we've been stressing that this team hasn't had enough juice from the surrounding pieces as of late, where there's no doubt about it. Tobias Harris was awesome. 23 points, 10 of 15 from the field, 4 apples, had some steals in there as well. And I just want to let you know some stats that I saw afterwards. This is courtesy of Ruben Frank, ironically enough. Here's Tobias. I don't know why that's ironic. It's not ironic. I'm just bringing that up to you because he's an Eagles reporter, but he does put fantastic stats out there in general. He's shooting in his last 12 games, 53% from the field, 46% from 3, 16.6 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 3.6 assists per game, and 1.2 steals per game. Tobias Harris is getting into a better rhythm. He's making better decisions with the basketball, and he's playing a more comfortable version of Tobias Harris ball, and that is relating to this team having a better identity and playing better throughout certain moments. I didn't love the ending, and I don't think Doc Rivers necessarily did either. You saw him call a timeout because there were a couple turnovers. Joel Embiid basically just gave the basketball away, a nice easy layup for 2 for the Lakers, and it probably shouldn't have even closed out that way, but really no sweat, no harm, no foul. You throw in the backups. Andre Drummond played late. You had some of those guys that are on the end of your bench logging in some minutes towards the end. Well, when Russell Westbrook is turning the ball over 6 times, he's such a hate to face. He's a clown. Anthony Davis was begging for anyone to step up. There were a couple buckets made by Melo, especially early, where I even went back a little bit. I went back to the early 2000s. I swear to God, watching Melo put up some buckets, whether it was contested jumpers, and it was tough with a few defenders kind of in his area. I always loved Melo to death, and I loved what he did in Portland after nobody gave him an opportunity to play again. So I'll always just have a soft spot in my heart for appreciating what Melo has done throughout the real prime in his career, but even though he still gets his at times. And real quickly, if you don't believe, now, this is just a report from Yahoo Sports. We don't know necessarily what was said, but Yahoo Sports, Chris Haynes is reporting that what is being heard is that people in the stands, those 2 fans that got ejected, were calling Melo boy and going down that road. And if you don't see a problem with that, because unfortunately the reaction was towards, that's it, this league is soft, Melo is soft, I can't believe they got kicked out for that. If you don't see why that's unacceptable, well then you are absolutely part of the problem as well, and I'm disgusted by that. So honestly, you're a joke and you're an absolute jerk off if you are one of those individuals that think that that's not a big deal and that was an okay thing for somebody to tell a person of color playing in the NBA, or anyone in general, doesn't matter if you're in the NBA or not, but throwing that type of wordage out based off of the history of the world and the history of what went down at one point in this damn country, well then you're just a fool and I can't stand you. Anyway, getting back to basketball, even though that is way more important than basketball is, I think you understand where I'm at with that. Other guys stepped up. Niang, 4 threes. Danny Green hit his threes early on. Drummond, 10 boards in about 12, 13 minutes of play. And Tyrese Maxey, more stats for you. 14 points, 10 assists, 7 rebounds, plus 27 in 39 minutes. So let's not downplay Tyrese Maxey's role into this strong effort too. Just all around, you look through that box score. Furkan Korkmaz had himself that air Korkmaz moment when he went soaring through and had a major jam. And speaking about major jams, yeah, Matisse Thybulle got up also, and he made his impact on the defensive side. He had 4 steals. He cut to the basket very well, and that's been something that has been notified so far this year. When Matisse has had his better nights, it's his ability to go towards the basket, his ability to read the right moment to cut and get into a certain area. It's sort of like a wide receiver when you're running your route and you get hit with the perfect pass while you're running your nice route. That's Joel Embiid making a bounce pass. That's Matisse Thybulle, finding a spot on the floor and the right moment and the right bang, that right bang to make sure you're getting yourself available for your teammates. Definitely incredible from him. And then also, that steal that happened at half court, there were 2. One, lazy pass going from around the elbow outside the 3-point line towards the top of the perimeter. He jumped that with ease. He had an easy jam. And then the play where he goes up and jumps what seemed like 6,000 feet in the air. He could play cornerback. I tweeted it out. Can we see him opposite of Darius Slay next season making plays for your Philadelphia Eagles? He ends up passing it to Matisse Thybulle, but just the way that he gets up there, the way his hops, he flies up, soars up, gets there. It's definitely eye-popping when he shows up and does that, because that's the Matisse Thybulle that definitely changes games. And, it just would have been interesting to see how things defensively would have changed with the LeBron James, who's in year 6,000, and he's still, I looked this up, it's like his 2nd or 3rd best points per game percentage or points per game scored so far in his career, and he's 96 years old. So it is remarkable. I know in the second half, they made some adjustments and put Tobias on Anthony Davis, allowing Joel Embiid to somewhat roam a bit. And that's when you saw the sequence of him on the left side of the basket offensively. The ball swings around. I believe in that sequence he got the hockey assist, so it would technically be the secondary assist, which did not pop on the scoreboard. And that happened a lot throughout the night, where he was the one to set up that offensive rhythm and get the Sixers in a spot to hit a bucket and score some points. It's just nothing necessarily goes towards his name and gets credit on any sort of number basis. But it goes from that, and then on the other end, he's blocking a 3-pointer out by the perimeter as a 7-foot individual. It's just mind-blowing for sure to see Embiid. But I'm in awe from everything. I actually was admiring the fact that it wasn't easy. It wasn't one of those games where he was fully like Anthony Davis, right? You watched Anthony Davis and you oohed and ahed every time there was a defender in his face and he made a tough two, a contested shot. He was able to deliver, and you go, damn, he's feeling it tonight. I almost find it even more incredible that when Embiid is having one of his weaker nights, and I'll use air quotes there, and one of those efforts where it just wasn't his, he still finishes 9 of 20 with 26, 9, and 7, and finds other ways to kind of get this thing going for the team. And I get it. Look, the Lakers are not good. They're not a good basketball team. I don't want the power of the logo and the power of the name LeBron James, who wasn't even on the floor tonight, to make it seem like they are a stronger opponent than what they are. No, they're not good. They are not good. They have their struggles. They're talking about firing the head coach. You know, Westbrook is terrible and he's trash, even though, weirdly enough, he was knocking down a couple threes, and that hurt this team all around. I know basketball at times can be something that you dive real deep into and you really study it, and it's a, you know, there's a deeper level to it. There are also times where you can simplify it. Who made more threes? Who was more impactful shooting the ball from the distance? And when you go 6 for 29, that ain't gonna cut it. You can't keep up pace when Danny Green's hitting threes, when Niang is hitting threes. How about Danny Green early, coming back and just falling into rhythm? Now, as the game went on, wasn't as loud. He did have one really good defensive possession that limited the Lakers from getting anything off, and the Sixers put the clamps down for sure at times throughout some possessions. And, yeah, I mean, Danny Green was good, don't get me wrong. It got a little weaker there towards the end and whatnot, but you could see the difference. And I remember saying this to myself when Danny Green, and just the fact that he has the ability at some points to turn it on and cash in 2 threes, that's very valuable. Now, bench player, a handful of minutes, being on a minute restriction compared to maybe where he was earlier in the year, which was starting, playing a lot, you know, running up and down the floor at such a high clip. Well, then, yeah, there's a huge difference with limited minutes, couple threes, take a few, let's see what happens, and then move on, compared to relying on him to be high 20-minute style of player. What did he finish with? Let's see. If you go to the Sixers score, 105-87, he finished with 16 minutes of play, which I know was in that range of somewhat of what they were trying to limit him to. So, yeah, you could just feel the impact for sure of that. Now, what else is going on here? I know that the Shaq cut was getting a lot of noise, and I want to play that cut for you, even though I'm sure everybody heard it, and it's in regards to Ben Simmons and how he feels about him. But it looks like Joel Embiid is speaking right now, who, by the way, paid for Alvarado's technical foul the other night when they played against the Pelicans, and there was that double technical. He paid for that foul. That's just more defining. I know it sounds silly to even bring that up, but if someone goes back to Jalen Hurts, and whenever, if Jalen Hurts ends up not being the guy or not, that's not what it's about when I'm bringing this up right now. But when the stands fell in Washington, there's a way that you carry yourself. There's a way that you lead. There's a demeanor about you. And that says something about Jalen Hurts. Now, he might not have the talent to be an NFL starting quarterback to win you championships year in and year out as we continue to watch him grow, or if the Eagles elect to go in another direction. But I'm talking more from just a professional, from a personality trait, from who you are as a person, Jalen Hurts. This is so big in the grand scheme of things, of Joel Embiid learning how to lead, being ready to win, being ready to be an NBA superstar. And no one wanted to hear it at the time, at 21, at 22, at 23. But go back to what I was telling everybody when they were so disgusted about turnovers and disgusted that he wasn't winning you championships, and then, you know, started putting the blame in all these directions. And I do think that to be fair, I do think that there is a correlation between, you know, Doc Rivers, Sam Cassell, the coaching staff now, and Joel Embiid's improvement, but it was also him just growing up as a person, growing up studying what other players did, studying KD, studying MJ, studying all these guards in the league, and even the big-time centers, too. Don't leave that out. But I remember the first time he made the world aware that he was watching guards and ball handlers, and there were so many people in this city that were disgusted to hear that, because that didn't put him in the category that you wanted. You wanted just the center, but you just see the overall intensity of Joel Embiid, the NBA superstar. Follow my lead. I'm going to put us in a position to succeed. Join me. those type of little things off the court goes a long way as well. He continues to talk about what happened with Carmelo Anthony and the fan tonight. Says he just wanted to calm the situation down. He didn't want to get too involved. He just wanted to go home and finish the game. Joel Embiid told Maxey today, thank you for finally being a point guard and passing the ball. I love that kind of stuff, man. I really do. I love that stuff. He made sure to note that Maxey does what Maxey does for them that doesn't necessarily show up in the box score, etc. I love that part of it, and you can just throw shots at people, but hold them accountable, but do it in a joking way, and it's all fun and games, but in the back of his mind, you know that when Joel Embiid says that, then Tyrese Maxey absorbs that, and he soaks it in and goes, look, this is an area I'm going to grow at because Joel Embiid needs me to grow. Yet there was one clown in this city who's still technically here who's unwilling to do that. So with that, why don't we play the cut of Shaq this was before the game on Ben Simmons. Let's play that right now. I want to throw in my earphone so I can hear it, even though I've heard it 7 billion times and I can't stop playing it because it's so damn true. He's right on the money, except for the very end, and I'll touch on that in one moment. But okay, here is Shaq before the game about Ben Simmons and the growth of Joel Embiid, the combination of both of that.
Stay on big guys because I care about them. I want them to play a certain way. I want them to play at a certain level. Difference between him and his soft partner is he can take criticism without being a crybaby, and he still wants to play. Because me and Charles, we've been on him. We stay on him. We tell him to his face what he needs to do. He didn't cry. He didn't say, I want to be traded. He didn't, complain about mistreatment. And that's the difference. That's why I like and respect him. The other guy I don't respect. I've been thinking about it. You're missing the whole season because they asked your coach a question, can we win without you? And your coach gave a funny answer. That should tell you need to get in the summertime and work on your game. You don't think I haven't been criticized by you guys and Stephen A? You don't think I haven't been criticized by L.A. media, New York media? Great players get criticized, but the great players also step up to the criticism and perform. So this other guy, I don't respect him. I would get rid of him.
I literally love it. I mean, that's perfect. It's right on the money. It's absolutely true, except for I'm going to get rid of him. I'd get rid of him. Trust me, Daryl Morey is doing everything in his power to make sure that they put themselves in the best position possible with the Ben Simmons trade, but I'm not just, quote, getting rid of him and trading Ben Simmons if it doesn't help out who you are giving so much praise to, which is Joel Embiid. You're talking about how much he works on his craft, gets back in the gym, takes the criticism, becomes such an elite talent and takes this league by storm, puts himself in another all-star position. Even though all-stars are what they are, there's a big difference between the top guys and then the guys that just kind of get in and have their all-star appearances. Joel Embiid, like, you're giving him all that hype and all that talk and all that praise because he did do the right things. And there's a reason why we should be discussing him as the MVP favorite, not just in the MVP discussion. But with that said, what you have to do when the player is performing at the peak like he is right now is do everything in your power to maximize a Ben Simmons trade, to put a lethal weapon next to him to go get that title, instead of thinking, hey, maybe we can get by with average and maybe a tick above average players because Embiid is playing at a high clip. No, that's flawed, and that will hurt you more in the long term. I know it's tough to do, and it's going to take patience, and it's not the easiest task in the world because you're soaking in it at this very moment, but you need to think about more of the long term. But I love the way Shaq is just throwing shots, and it made me wonder, when you are Rich Paul, when you are Clutch Sports, when you're these other athletes, I'm sure they feel the same way, but when you're Ben Simmons and you sit there, and I don't even know if he's watching. Maybe he's playing video games, kicking back, hanging out with his chick. Maybe he's at the Australian Open and he's watching some of those athletes out there at the tennis courts doing what they do best instead of, I don't know, working on his own damn game or playing a basketball game against the Los Angeles Lakers on your home floor in front of 20,000 fans that would be cheering you on. But no, that would be too much to ask, and that's just insanity, apparently, which is a joke and an embarrassment. But what does he feel when he sees a player like Shaq really ripping into him and crushing him to that level? And I will say, because recently Charles Barkley made some statements about how they just have to get get rid of him. What a hypocrite, considering what the Sixers got back in return for someone who was not the happiest in the world by the end with Charles Barkley here in Philadelphia. Just to be fair here, and that's why, too, when I hear J.J. Redick, and I know everyone who wants to just move on from Ben saying a certain thing, oh, well, listen to what J.J.'s saying. Well, J.J., look, they have agendas, right? They probably want what's best for Ben, and they're looking out for a teammate that they like, right? Danny Green, they like Ben Simmons. I'm sure J.J. Redick, considering the success that he had here towards the end of his career, having those playoff runs, Ben Simmons running the floor, finding him in the wide open corner, all of that played such a massive role in their relationship and their friendship. And it's sort of like, yeah, you make those comments not only because maybe you do feel a certain way about Joel Embiid and where the Sixers are too, but you're probably trying to push the agenda to help out Ben as well. That's why I don't put a lot of stock into what some of the individuals say out there. It depends on who it's coming from, the tone, their relationship with the Sixers and Ben and all that. So it's a case-by-case scenario, of course, but that's kind of my thoughts on what you see around with this whole thing in general. All right, we're going to rock some Anytime Hotline calls, of course. First, DeSimone Jewelers. They are my jeweler. I got my fiance's engagement ring from them, and I keep going back for birthday gifts, holidays, Valentine's Day coming up. You would be silly not to go to DeSimone Jewelers to get your significant other such a great, beautiful piece from the DeSimone family. They're a family-owned business located in Haddonfield, New Jersey, previously in Jewelers Row. Will, Lou, Nick, and Mike, they treat you like family. They are A+ and the best in the business. Why? Because they work with you to get the best design at the most reasonable price you will find in the entire market. They provide custom jewelry repairs, appraisals, watch repairs, battery replacement, and so much more. Their website is down below in the description, DeSimoneJewelers.com. And if you tell them that Broad sent you, they will hook you up like no other. They are just the best. I mean, I'll tell you what, I cannot stop going to them. I appreciate every moment I walk into their store. They treat you like your last name is DeSimone, and that goes such a long way. They're passionate like we are about watching Joel Embiid. They care that much about what they're selling and what they are providing for you, the individual. So make sure you check them out, DeSimoneJewelers.com. With that, a lot of text messages coming in as of late. I just want to be clear with everyone. Yeah, we've been rocking some of the text messages a bit more, but the calls are still there. I just want to make sure that that's clear with people, because it does seem like we've went through a big change with the text messages to the call. The calls are still available. Just want to make that clear, because people have been reaching out to me about that, and I want to make that public announcement, if you will. Okay, so what's up, bro? It's Nick here. Been loving the vids. Thank you, Nick. Joel had one of his sloppy nights efficiency-wise, but I felt like he found other ways to contribute his passing, which gets rewarded more often because of the spacing. Let's hope Morey gets something done either by the deadline or offseason to help this man out. I'm thinking it's more towards the end of the season, more towards the offseason. That's why when he went on the Mike Missinelli show, he made it very clear that it's likely that he will still be here in a Sixers uniform compared to the alternative by the end of the year. I think that's most likely what is going to happen. In terms of spacing, no doubt about it. And that's why my eyes got wide open early on when I thought about Danny Green and his ability to knock down those shots. Now, I just feel at this point in his career, it's not something that I can consistently look at and say, hey, Danny Green, go get me some buckets, go score me one. I need you. Let's dial up a play for Danny Green wide open in the corner. It just hasn't been there this season. Last year, it wasn't early on either, but then at some point, it broke free, and he was a man on a mission and someone that you needed at crucial moments, and this team was lost without his ability to stand there and be a respectful piece for other defenses to be fully aware of and make sure they have their eyes covered on Danny Green at all times. I thought at some point this year we would have hit that already, and it just hasn't been the case. And he's been in and out, and I get that. And he's on a minute restriction and whatnot. I just think this is the Danny Green you're going to get this season. This is what I can at least put my eggs in. If we're talking about putting your eggs in one basket, I can. And if you get a bonus, if you get more than that as the year progresses, then fine. It's sort of like an added bonus, and it's extra money. It's when you're doing laundry and you put your hands in your pockets before you dump your entire laundry basket in the washing machine, and you find a $10 bill, you find a $50 bill. Hell, if you're lucky enough, you find a $100 bill. That's what Danny Green would be if he became a sharpshooter that was consistent and all money, basically every single night. But at this point, you saw that in that earlier frame. And then when Niang's out there, you saw that and they made some tough decisions at times with some of their players bringing the double team, and at times it just wasn't perfected at the right moment, which opened up a lane for Embiid to have an easy kick out. But I also love, too, when Embiid is driving the paint and he gets the ball out by the perimeter, or he's actually pushing the pace and he's the one that is setting the tone with operating the full court kind of play, and he has the ball in his right hand, and he's drawing two defenders, and he's looking around for maybe Isaiah Joe, or obviously not Seth Curry because he wasn't out there today, but he's looking for Niang. He's looking for certain players while facilitating at 7 foot, and he's holding the ball out, right? Like the defenders are somewhat, two of them are on him, and he's holding the ball, and then he just kind of plops it out. I mean, it's something that doesn't even make sense, and it's hard for my brain to even wrap around it. But I agree with you completely, Nick. Thank you so much for all the kind words, and you're absolutely 1,000% right. He helped out this team in so many areas, and a lot of those did show up. Don't get me wrong. Those assist numbers, we can't just mock and pretend like 7 isn't a ton, and then all the hockey assists as well. They were on there, but it could have even been more lethal if there were the hockey assists involved. So, just awesome all around. Cutting to the basket, finding guys that way, threading the needle. Matisse Thybulle, what do you know? He's there. You find a bounce pass between two defenders. Awesome and electric. James texts in, Lakers fans are acting like Embiid didn't have a good night because of Anthony Davis. No cap, AD did his thing. Contested buckets, and without him, the Lakers were probably losing by 60 tonight. Let's not forget how the entire offense moves through Hans. I love how you just referenced him by Hans. That threw me off, and that's phenomenal. Even through the passing game. Good for the win. Good win for the Sixers. Love you, bros, and keep it up. Thank you so much. I love that. Can I execute that? Just calling him Hans or the Hans? I don't know. I don't want to steal your thunder or try and throw it into a sequence of sentences and just play it off as if that was cool and went in rhythm. Maybe one day throughout the next couple of games I'll try it and we can discuss it in the comments section if it was as smooth as maybe I anticipated, even though I don't think it's going to be smooth. I don't think at all, but maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out. I love that, though, and you're absolutely right. This team would have got just waxed off the floor and completely embarrassed without AD, and I did not expect AD to have that type of night. Then he lands on his wrist. He had a big block on Embiid. He did have some powerful moments, and it just seemed like we were going to get a good old-fashioned AD versus Joel Embiid nonstop, but there was a big difference in what Joel Embiid anchors defensively, and then some of the looks the Lakers were trying to throw his way with doubles and triples. It doesn't necessarily perfectly match up, where you can't just say that AD was eating him up alive and taking his lunch money. Like, it wasn't, I mean, that's a very, like, vanilla statement, and then when you really study the differences on how both of them operated on the floor, it definitely was different, and there's more context involved, but I can't deny it. I was watching AD, and I did have a couple of those, damn, that was solid, or, ooh, wow, okay, that was really smooth, and to start the game, you got him going underneath the basket for somewhat of a reverse, and then Embiid with a spinorama out by the three-point line, and then he targets the rim full speed and gets to the rack with ease, and you just saw those back and forth spots, and you could just feel the energy in the building. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, it was deflated when you heard the news that LeBron James wasn't going to be available, but it's crazy to think about what LeBron James does. Think about all the momentum towards heading down to the arena tonight and all that conversation on sports talk radio of what it's like for LeBron. Do you have to get down there? You got to buy tickets for that. Like, it's so damn impactful what LeBron James does. I was thinking, is Joel Embiid that? And as good as Steph is, as good as KD is, as good as Joel is, as good as Doncic is, as good as Jokic is, as good as all these best players in the league really are, it's not LeBron James coming to town. Sure, some players are must-watch, and some players you would love to see live, and you're excited when some of these sharpshooters are there. You want to see Steph Curry drop 50 in person. All that is true, and I don't want to downplay how awesome those moments are, but there is nothing, and I mean nothing, like when LeBron James is in your town, and you could say, yeah, I saw LeBron live. Yeah, I was sitting in section 106, row 12, when LeBron was here. You don't say it that way with Luka or Steph or KD. It's not. And that just tells you the power of LeBron and the power of guys like MJ and the power of guys like Brady and the power of guys like Tiger. They're just in a totally different category that it's hard to really have it hit home until you have moments like this where you see what your city is like when those players come to town. I know Embiid is a fun watch and he's incredible right now and he's giving you a tear that is ridiculous. But you still don't get and I don't want to use a smaller market because I was going to say something along the lines of Memphis, and Ja Morant's another name that is magnificent. But, I'm not going to say Boston because no matter who's playing for the Sixers, when you play Boston, there's that heated rivalry just because of the logo and whatnot. But I think you get my point. When you see the Sixers logo in Embiid, while it is something, it's not the same level of a LeBron James. All right, and then another text here from someone who did not leave their name. I've texted this before. These efforts by Matisse Thybulle is game-changing, and he shows up for the better opponents. Every time, it seems. You look back at Golden State, you look back at tonight, you look back at what he did against Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum against the Celtics. With a team that already struggles with perimeter defense, how can they afford to lose him in a Ben deal? It makes me wonder, ... You don't hold off on a premier talent in this league for a role player. I know his defense is seriously something that you can't take for granted, especially, you're right. You're absolutely right, actually. He shows up against these better opponents, and I'll take that any day of the week over showing up against the sloppy ones. If you're having bad nights against bad teams and great nights against good teams, you're rising to the occasion, and I want you to be more consistent. And is there something to be said about what he can do in the postseason if he's going to keep continuing to grow in this cutter role, and maybe there's something to be said about a dunker spot and things of that nature, but I'm not going to hold off on Matisse Thybulle and say he's an untouchable if, and I mean if, it lands you a special talent. I'm sorry, it's not that good enough where I'm now just eliminating that from any possible deal to team up with Joel Embiid. That won't happen for me, and I'll stand by that. With that being said, we're going to shut things down here. I want to thank everybody so much for hanging out with me tonight. Thank you for listening to this episode of Sports Talk with Broads, and I will see you next time.